Welcome to the 343rd episode of the Reading and Writing Podcast. Stay tuned for my interview with Ben Zackheim, author of the Kane Arkwright supernatural thriller series. Stay tuned for the interview. Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is urban fantasy author Ben Zackheim, author of the Kane Arkwright series. His latest novel is Relic Spear. Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Great. Well, if someone listening hasn't heard about the Kane Arkwright series and Relic Spear, your latest novel, how would you describe this novel?
The way I like to describe it, it reads well, doesn't necessarily translate well when speaking it, but it's part Buffy, part indie with body parts everywhere. That's kind of the way I try to sum it up. The two main characters are
Indy as in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, he's kind of like Indiana Jones, and she's they both have snark, they both have sass, and they basically are treasure hunters, and they're out trying to get the relics before the vampires do. Vampires had been asleep for 1,000 years for some mysterious reason, but before they went to sleep, they buried relics across the world, and now they're awake again, and Kane and Rebel need to find the relics before the vampires do. That's the premise.
And do you remember the original idea that led you to write the Kane Arkwright series?
Well, I'd been writing in middle grade and young adult fantasy for a few years, and I had hit a kind of a brick wall. I guess you could call it writer's block, but it was more like, do I really want to do this? I had been in corporate America for a long time. I was kind of used to that. I don't know what you would call it, but it was, the steady paycheck and the healthcare and things. And so I was thinking of going back to that. I had a discussion with my business partner, John Logston, who's also an author. And he basically said, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to write? And, what do you love? And I actually thought about it for the first time. And I know that, I know we ask ourselves these questions all the time, probably daily, some of us, but I actually really tried to listen to what the answer was. And, my favorite movie of all time was Indiana Jones. And I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I just thought, hey, it'd be kind of cool if, those two characters were in the same story and they were, chasing around the world for powerful relics that, trying to kick some vampire butt, and just a lot of fun. Something that the idea of doing something that was kind of based loosely on those two characters in a really cool situation that was meant to be a page turner, that I didn't have to, I didn't have to think too much about. I would just be able to use my story chops and writing chops to just kind of tell a good yarn. That really appealed to me. And so basically the next week, I want to say, maybe even sooner than that, I sat down and started just hammering out the story really in real time, kind of pantsing it, the term where you just kind of by the seat of your pants. I didn't plot it. And it came out very quickly. And it was my favorite piece that I'd ever written, even compared to the previous books, one of which I spent 9 years on. So it was really just a matter of getting in touch for the Kane Arkwright series. It was a matter of getting in touch with what really got me into storytelling in the first place. And it was a toss-up between, Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but space opera is my next. That's where I want to go next when the Relic series wraps up.
And how many books have been published in the Kane Arkwright series?
We're just released the 8th one. Relic Spear is the 8th one. Started publishing them in December of 2017. So yeah, in the 8th book, it's planned for 10. That's for this, at least for this current arc. At which point, again, I kind of want to give space opera a try, and because that's another one of my loves. And it's been a really good run on Relic, and I love it. But it is time to try something new for a while.
And when you sat down, as you mentioned earlier, and started hammering away at the first novel, did you plot the 10-book arc at that point, or did you come back to it later?
Well, I can't say too much because some of my readers might listen to this, but I had one premise in mind it's the overarching kind of, it's the the story and the twist. It's hard to explain, but it has to do with Kane, where Kane comes from, who he really is. That's just one of those mystery thrillers where you go through 5, 6 books, and he's just a guy who's really cool and has a lot of skills, and that doesn't have any magic in him at all. Whereas his partner Rebel has a lot of magic. She's a magicist, as I call witches and wizards. In my world, they're called magicists. So he's just kind of a cool guy. And then in the 6th book, stuff's revealed about, is he who he thinks he is? I had a lot of fun playing around with that. And that was when I started to kind of execute on what the original intent was. And the hint I can give for the readers who are out there is that it is around King Arthur and the King Arthur lore. But I won't say more than that.
Sure. As you mentioned earlier, you wrote the first book fairly fast, kind of leaning on your story chops and storytelling. I'm curious, have all of them come out so quickly?
The Camelot
in terms of the writing?
Yeah, not at all. The first book I tried, I come from kind of I don't know. It's a storytelling family. It's a creative. My mother's a writer, visual artist. My dad's a sculptor. It's just I've kind of grown up with that kind of lifestyle and that kind of thinking, I guess you could call it, which treats the creative process as a kind of a precious, magical thing with muses and correct moods and sipping sherry on the porch and all this stuff. And so I had to shed that, and it took me my first book that I wrote was the Camelot Kids, and that took me 9 years to write, from conception to publishing it. So that was it was wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it really was an eye opener as far as treating my craft as a craft, as something that isn't precious at all. That occasionally kicks my ass, and I occasionally need to kick its ass, and it's kind of I feel like I'm able to just work now as opposed to waiting for the right moment. And there are times when that's not the way it is. There are times when the words don't come quickly, or the words that come are horrible. But for the most part, I've, the age of 51, after, doing this for, what is it now? I guess 10 years, I'm finally able to have kind of a good relationship with the writing process.
Gotcha. So what has been the response among readers to the Kane Arkwright series?
Surprising, and it's just very surprising. I guess I came from, the young adult and the middle grade kind of markets, which it's hard to get feedback, for a number of reasons from kids and teens on the stuff that I did. I didn't do readings and things of that nature, which might have given me more feedback from readers. But I kind of entered into the urban fantasy genre because of that conversation I had with my business partner, but also I just was hanging out with a lot of urban fantasy authors. I was hanging out with Shane Silvers. I was hanging out with Orlando Sanchez, with John Logston, who's also in urban fantasy among other things. Comedy, he also writes. So I was kind of swept into that kind of genre. Swept off my feet, so to speak. And so when I started writing in it, Shane and John and Orlando and Eric Knowles and others just said, "Hey, this guy Ben Zackheim just wrote a book." So it really was a matter of getting writing a good story, sure, but also being somewhat social and in a way that I was comfortable, because I'm an introvert. I don't like people. I don't like being around people, at least for prolonged periods of time. And Facebook, over the years, I've made some Facebook friends who have become real world friends, and they helped me find readers. And the readers found me at a certain point. They weren't going to be free marketing for me, but they definitely did give me a leg up. There's no question about that. I also learned how to advertise on Facebook, etc. So just being on that platform means that the response you're going to get is going to be the gamut. You're going to get absolute fanatic fans, wonderful, and some not so, some a little bit scary. But then you'll also get the trolls and people like that. You just kind of got to get a thick skin to it. So I'd say the response has been great. I love it. It's overwhelming sometimes. But this is like what we sign up for, especially in the day where so easy for people to connect with their favorite storytellers. And people find a way to help me. They read my books early. I ask them to. I give them an early copy of the book so they can give me feedback. So it feels like I've made hundreds and hundreds of acquaintances. So I would say overall, really big positive.
So you mentioned earlier the Facebook ads. What are you doing in terms of marketing the Kane Arkwright books?
Yeah, the two primary marketing kind of tactics are Facebook ads and Amazon ads. Amazon ads, also known as AMS, is it's all within the Amazon ecosystem, and they make it very easy because they want to take your money very easily. But it's a really good way to basically say, well, I'm kind of similar to Shane Silvers. I'm kind of similar to Patricia Briggs. I mean, not that I'm as good a writer, or it's not a quality thing. It's more like going for the same audience. So I'm able to actually target people specifically who like Shane Silvers, who like Patricia Briggs, which helps me get in front of the right people. Helps me get in front of the right Facebook groups. It helps spread the word. And so when you advertise on Facebook, you're paying on a cost per click basis if you so choose. That's the one that I've found to be the most profitable. And you craft your ads and target your ads very carefully. You can spend money very quickly and go broke very quickly. You have to track this stuff. You have to go in with a budget, knowing what you're willing to spend. But it's extremely effective. And you can if you write a good book with a good cover and you have a good editor and you run good ads, I think any talented writer could do well, could make money, put it that way, on a monthly basis, as forever, unless Amazon changes the game and, shuts down the shop. So they've really made a good ecosystem for authors to at least be in the black. And we're not talking about big numbers here, but I would certainly compare profits against, the stock market or, an interest rate in the bank. It's a better way to make more money writing books as opposed to, investing in stocks or something. Higher return, higher ROI overall.
And so where do you stand on Kindle Unlimited? Are the Kane Arkwright books available on Kindle Unlimited?
They are, yeah. It's kind of, I don't see myself ever leaving that unless the deal gets horrible. And I have my, they do change the terms sometimes, Amazon. The Kindle Unlimited is the, $9.99 a month, and you get access to hundreds of thousands of books or something like that. Some by, I think actually even like J.K. Rowling is in it. I think, there's certain, they roll in and out. So I don't think I'll ever leave that. I might try to go wide and get out of Amazon completely with a certain title that I'd like to write one day, which could do well in Apple store. So it's a possibility. But other places besides Amazon and besides Kindle Unlimited have a lot of proving to do if they're going to take business away from Amazon.
Sure. So are any of the Kane Arkwright books available as audiobooks?
Not yet. No, I had 3 false starts. I tried to do things. This is one of the things I've learned is, listen to your friends, listen to the people who have gone through these processes, and don't make the same mistakes they did. I tried to do audiobooks on my own, finding my own talent and doing the production with somebody I know. And so I had 3 false starts. This is the year I've committed to starting that up. So I'm actually reaching out for names right now. Right now, it looks like the person I'd really love to get do the Kane Arkwright books is currently busy doing Kimbra Swain's books, and Kimbra is a emerging talent in urban fantasy, but he's got an amazing voice. So this year is what I'm going to commit to right here, right now, or may I forever suffer the consequences.
So what are your earliest memories of reading and books?
The Conan books, I think probably. I was a little, I was a little horn dog, the age of 8. I think it was. Where did I? I don't remember whose it was. It might have been my stepbrother's um, book, but it had Conan, and it was a Frank Frazetta cover, kind of like
Sure.
Conan, and barely clad, scantily clad woman, and he's about to take on some serpent dragon in the background, shadowy monster. That was fascinating to me. I don't think I could get past the third chapter because I couldn't pronounce a quarter of the names. But that was my first kind of introduction to reading at least the kinds of stuff that I ended up loving in my in my adult life. I mean, but before that, of course, it's what everybody else, every other kid who was fortunate enough to have parents who forced them to read. It was it would have been the Winnie the Pooh certainly was part of it. Any Sesame Street book, of course, would have done it. So it's, I think, your standard picture books is how it really got started, which actually got me into comics, which was a nice kind of tag team between comic books and fantasy books. There in my teens and 20s, that was kind of a magic time because those two worked very well together, and some of the best stuff ever was coming out. So yeah, that's what I remember at least.
Great. Well, you mentioned a space opera
Mm-hmm.
novel or novels plural earlier that you're looking forward to working on. Have you given that thought? Is there
Oh
anything you can talk about?
I don't know if there's anything quite solid yet. I've got there's a buddy of mine that I really, really want to write with, and he's in the business. His name is Brandon Ellis, and he does some spectacular space opera books. And I met him at a conference in Las Vegas called 20 Books Vegas, which is just a lot of independent authors and published authors, but people who just love writing books and want to make a living doing it. A very, very good organization. You can actually find them on Facebook. 20 Books to 50K is the name, their full name on Facebook. And Brandon and I, he was looking for to kind of get a lineup of space opera books, and I've had an idea for a number of years, and I pitched it to him, and he was like, "Oh, cool, let's do it." So I'm late in delivering a draft to him, but I am still planning on surprising him one day with a full draft for him to give the yay or nay on.
Great. Well, what have been the challenges for you for self-publishing?
Um, uh, what would I finding the grit to do it, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Like finding there's so many days that are downers. There's so many like big and small ways that being a self-published author can wear you down. And I would equate it to, owning a small business and having those, weeks and months and quarters or whatever that don't go well. Um, so I think you just the having to get up every morning, check on all of my ad spend and my sales, and see how things are doing, where I might be able to improve covers or book descriptions, ad tweaks. Is the series being read through all the way from book 1 to book 8? Where's the drop off at? Oh, it looks like it's at book 4. I better take a look at what the transition is between book 3 and book 4. Something must happen at the end of book 3 that is not resonating with people. And I have to ask myself, should I go back and rewrite or take a look at, give it to an editor to check out book 3 and see if there's a weakness there. Why is there a drop off in book 4? So you can see it's easy to get kind of caught in a lot of the details of not just storytelling and trying to tell a good story and have a good time and meet cool people and have fans and make money, blah, blah, blah. But just to, really stay healthy, stay on top of it, keep keep a positive outlook. That's where I think the friends definitely come in, because everybody goes through this. Everybody goes through their peaks and valleys, and sometimes the successful days are the hardest ones to take. When I've had a great launch, I've found that's when, self-sabotage kicks in, which I think a lot of creative people run into a lot. The fear of success can also, really knock you upside the head. So it's a I'd say the hardest thing about self-publishing is being your own boss and staying, keeping the grit, really like getting ready to work every single day to stay on top of things.
So I know that you've built reader links for self-published author. Can you describe what the reader link service is?
Yeah, my business partner John Logston and I guess it was about 2012, I think. Well, I left the work that he and I were in. I left. That's where we met at work, working for a big company. When I left, he asked where I was headed to next, and I told him I was going to write books and probably self-publish, even though I know agents, I know editors. I probably could have gone the publish route if I'd so chosen, but I was so into the idea of being self-published because at the time, the App Store, the iPhone App Store was kind of exploding, and all of these small shops were making these little games for 99 cents. And then the Kindle came out, and the Kindle store, it struck me, well, this is the same thing's going to happen for books. So this is an exciting time to self-publish and control my own destiny, control my own marketing, etc. And so when he asked me what I was going to do, I said I'm going to go write books, and he thought I was nuts, but he also was really kind of inspired and was like, "Wow, really? You're going to do that?" And about a year later, he reached out and he's like, "Are you still doing that?" And so I was like the sensei for about 3 months, and then John, who's got this analytical brain like you wouldn't believe, and kind of he talk about grit. This guy will just keep on going. He started building these tools. He started building a automatic tweet thing, and then he built a link system so that you could actually shorten your link and track the performance of the link, and you could tie the link to the book so that you could actually see this link that was made for this book is doing this well, over here on Facebook or over there on Twitter or whatever. And that was really exciting. And so these little tools that he was building, we were like, well, why don't we make this into a business? Self-publishing was exploding at the time. It still is. Why don't we make tools for people so they don't have to worry about, using Google Docs and Bitly and, this and that and the other thing, a bunch of different stuff to try to bring everything together. Let's make this thing called Reader Links that'll allow especially self-published authors, especially Amazon self-published authors, to really keep track of their business so that they can, do things that work and stop doing things that don't work. And it's grown ever since. We launched back in 2017, I think. Finally, after a couple of years of development, we brought in a really amazing developer. Rafal is his name, and he just kicked our butts and got this thing launched. And people love it. We have fanatic users. They really, those who love it. Those who hate it just say, yeah, see you later, man. Not for me, because it is a very big system and does a lot of different things, and it's not for everybody. But anybody who's in Amazon, whether you're self-published, well, self-published is really the way to do it, unless you have a publisher who's a small publisher who will allow you to see all of your sales data. It really is for self-published authors.
So John is a writer himself, right? In addition to helping you develop this software.
Yeah. He's a really good, very funny writer. He does the Ononoken series, which is a hilarious kind of fantasy in the same vein as Terry Pratchett. And he also writes the it's gonna kill me. Platoon F. It's a sci-fi comedy stuff that he writes. Which is equally hilarious. And then he and I actually did are doing a book series together. We're on book 5. We're about to do book 5 of a series together. And it's his series. It's in his world. It's the Paranormal Police Department, which is it's just basically a police department that deals with the paranormal and is paranormal themselves. And so he broke it down by cities. So Orlando Sanchez was writing with him on the Badlands, or for me it's New York City. Eric does Seattle, and then a guy Noah Sturtevant does I think he does Southeast Asia. So it's location based. It's a lot of fun. The one that I do is Bethany Black, who's a were tiger and sassy were tiger, and her pixie partner Max Shakespeare. So you can see I just do this to have fun.
Sure, sure. So, what writing advice would you offer for listeners who are writing their own stories and novels?
I would say get out. I mean, the best thing that I ever learned for myself is to get out of my own way, which basically means don't treat your story as a precious, baby. Treat it as something that needs to grow and needs to become what you want it to be, and then it either works out or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you move on to the next story. So I don't want to be cliched and say just keep writing every day. It does kind of come down to that. It's the mindset of not treating your craft as precious. And if you want to make a living doing it, and I think if you want to get better, looking at it as a job has helped me a lot to appreciate the creative aspect of it, but also appreciate what it can do for me financially. So I guess the bottom line advice would be, don't treat your story as precious.
So, what novels or nonfiction books have you read recently that you enjoyed?
Oh man, I finally started. I don't know about you, but I had a hard time when COVID hit reading and focusing. But I finally started picking stuff up again. And now I'm reading Patricia Briggs for the first time, which will probably horrify any of my readers who are listening. Patricia Briggs. It's the Cry Wolf, I think, is the book I'm reading right now. I enjoy it. I also got. I reread Charlene Harris, Dead Until Dark, because I just wanted to kind of remind myself what good storytelling, effortless storytelling is. And I really do. I see her writing as kind of this effortless, free flowing thing that I really admire. So those are the two most recent books. I also, if I were to be, I guess I should be honest, but I also do things like, Star Wars novels and things like that, because I just love that stuff. Not high literature, but Timothy Zahn, you're a genius, So
So, where can people find you online if they'd like to learn more about you and your novels?
Well, I think the best place is on Facebook. You can my Facebook page, author page, is Benjamin Zackheim, all one word. So I guess BenjaminZackheim, as in Mary, and that you'll find me there. That's probably the best place, and very active community there. A lot of fun stuff posted. A lot of comments, and it's a real community. So I think I'm really proud of what me and my readers have built there. Or you can just head to my website at benzackheim.com and sign up for the newsletter. And if you like the Relic series, Kane Arkwright series, you can sign up for the newsletter and get a free 10,000 word short story about kind of the origin, the first meeting, first team up of Kane and Rebel, the main characters.
Great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Ben Zackheim, author of the Kane Arkwright series of supernatural thriller novels. Relic Spear, the latest Kane Arkwright novel, is available now, so go buy a copy. And Ben, thanks for doing this interview.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Great.